Good evening. Welcome to Monday Live. Welcome to Nick. And welcome to Masters Week. Very excited.
Very excited.
Very excited.
Yeah.
Maybe as the sun's out here, it kind of helps you feel like
All of it.
golf started. That's great, isn't it? I even managed to get a little bit of sun and not get burned.
Oh yeah, look at you.
Yeah. For a change.
How was the golf?
Yeah. There wasn't any. This was just sat in the garden for a couple of hours.
Wishful thinking.
Absolutely. Just going to do a quick mic check for Nick. Reboot. So essentially, we're going to, obviously chat a bit about the Masters and relevance of equipment for the Masters. I think.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Is there anything? I'll let James just double check Nick's mic. Yeah. Is there anything you're expecting to see equipment-wise at the Masters this year?
Well, I think the trend has been high lofted fairway woods.
Yeah.
I think height is key, especially around there, especially if you're maybe somebody who's not one of the power players. So interesting, you've seen somebody like Brian Harman win last week.
Yeah.
Tough conditions, obviously suits a
windy.
player like that.
He's got a type, hasn't he?
He's definitely got a type, absolutely. But I think for somebody like Brian, for him to compete around someone like Augusta, he's going to have a bit more loft in hand, I think, going into some of those longer par fours and par fives to maybe allow him to attack it. He's obviously very skilled, but he's not in the same league as your Rory, your Bryson, those guys who are going to be taking it over the top of dog legs and whatnot. So, guys like him, maybe I think they would be considering if it's quite late going into a major. He's a major champion already, but I wouldn't be surprised if they've got some high lofted fairway woods out.
As you say,
start of the week.
Torrey Pines earlier in the year, they pretty much all went to Sevenwoods. Those are the big players. I think Tommy Fleetwood put a 9-wood in.
Yeah.
And the conditions this year are really, there's a bit of rain on the Friday. Now shifted from what was going to be Friday into Saturday. It's now sort of through the day on Friday, but there's not a lot of wind. It's sort of 5 to 9 miles an hour.
Yeah.
The windy years are the ones that are easier to predict who's going to do well because it's ball strikers, it's people who can flight it and control it. Whereas this year, I think Augusta is one of the only courses that it is proven that long driving helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of hitting shorter irons into these small portions of greens.
Yeah, yeah.
But this year just looks like it's such benign conditions. It looks just perfect scoring conditions.
Yeah.
Unless they suck all the air out, the moisture out of the greens and stick them in the corners.
Yeah, it's tough to say, isn't it, on when conditions are going to be like the way they are, because it really opens it up to the bigger field, I think. And not only that, but obviously Rory's in great form. I don't want to give him the curse, but Rory's in great form. But some of the other guys as well around him. Scotty hasn't been exactly there or thereabouts as the last couple of weeks. Although
he trended, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he's going to be. I think he's going to be close, but and obviously big ball, high hitter.
I wonder what you're going to say.
I know, yeah. Me too for a second. I think it's open. I've got a few bets I'll be placing myself. Quite fancy. I think Colin Morikawa has been looking good. Yeah. Obviously got major experience. Feel like Justin Thomas could go well each way just because he's been trending in the right direction. Could be a bit inspired by there.
It's just that, with him, there's just that. Is he? It's hard to say. He's a major champion. Does he try? Is he in the right place to win a major?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think Scotty will be there or thereabouts. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think to add to that, I think Oberg. I think DeChambeau's got to be. Yeah. You can't rule them out. No. Koepka. There's still those sort of big game players. I don't know whether Leishman's in, but he won last week
in Miami,
and he always plays well around Augusta. He's one of those players where if you look at the form, I over the years you'd pick Matsuyama, Leishman, Cam Smith, McIlroy to be fair, always does well around there. Going back further, kind of Casey, Rose, Garcia, he's in that batch of players that's always played well around there.
Yeah,
it's just whether he's in or not. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know you've mentioned about driver and being a long drive around there, but I've always felt like really strong iron players do well. You're looking at a Laffabau, even some of the other guys who've won around there who aren't maybe the longest guys. Charles Schwartzel's long by average standards, but he's not like an absolute bomber. Trevor Immelman, people like that. Mike Weir, Faldo.
Mike Weir, great.
They went bombers, but they're great iron players and then very tidy around the green. So that's why I feel like maybe someone like a Colin Morikawa could be good around there because he neat and tidy, isn't going to fritter away shots, and then it's just whether he can get on a bit of a roll of knocking the flags out really. So
yeah, well I'm sure there'll be plenty of stuff coming through from you guys on that as well.
I know.
Very briefly otherwise, Mimi Rhodes, young lady who we've seen in the past, Second win, one in Joburg, a second win this season. She's come out the amateur ranks and come out with like an absolute rocket.
Yeah.
Great result. It was rain, very bad weather, and shortened to 3 rounds. But I think she was 18 under for the 3 rounds. So
yeah, second win as well. Very strong. Absolutely, yeah. Good luck for the rest of the season there as well. That's been a couple of the LET players who've now been through Precision Golf, done well. Yeah. Cara Gaynor with a win as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Lottie came third. So good defence. You can see she was struggling with the game a little bit. Obviously, great first round, 7 under, and then that last round you could just see she was battling a swing a touch, but still, to still come third. Great showing.
Yeah, so. Absolutely, yeah.
Right, let's get a little look.
Yeah, to get
see
in.
What,
normally, we run a bit late with these whenever I'm on, so I don't know if that's me.
Who knows? So, John Puckett, good evening from across the pond. What are the characteristics of the KBS Tour V? It says V10. I don't know if that's the Tour V110. Love the show.
Characteristics of it?
Yeah. So as we go, Tour V as a family first.
Yeah, so Tour V created based on the KBS Tour profile originally. My understanding was Kim Braley designed it around Phil Mickelson. When he moved over from Project X for him, he wanted something a little bit stiffer.
Kim designed the Project X as well.
Lighter, yeah, exactly. Kim Braley, obviously, sorry, for those who don't know, behind the Project X, the original sort of series, wasn't it, the Saturn series? So, I wanted something that could be played in a lighter profile but stiffer. And so that's kind of really where the Tour V sits in the KBS family. Relatively sort of mid to tip balance, not particularly tip balance, but comes out relatively light depending on what head you're putting it into. But certainly it's a great, at that 110, if I've got somebody where we need to just bring the launch and the spin down a little bit, then about yourself, who you, as a profile, you tend to sort of aim
really
that
stable.
But,
you say doesn't swing overly heavy.
No.
And certainly Mickelson played the Tour S, which is the 125.
Yeah.
And Kim and Phil have had a lot of collaborations, effectively design principle. But so Tour V, lighter version of KBS Tour, but the stiffer tip to keep the flight the same.
Yeah, I know.
You're really stable at that weight, though.
Yeah, Hovland's in the 120, isn't he? And I think Pardrake's played the 125 as well. So plenty of play on tour. But yeah, the 110, if you're looking at a shaft at around that weight, it's very stable.
Yorkshire Blade. Hi guys from Zonguldak, Turkey. I'm glad you added that bit. I was like, where the heck is that? Working in brackets. Nick in the downswing. How does not letting your trail knee rotate outwards stop you crossing the line in the top? At the top. So
how does not letting your trail knee roll out?
Yeah, stop you. So
grab a stick. Sir.
Yeah, I'll grab a stick. So the bit that I would now, I'm not going to pretend to be Stuart here, but if your trail knee, so if you're right-handed, your right knee, certainly in the backswing, if you let that rotate out, then your hip's got to go with it. So you're going to get more rotated behind and more likely to get across the line. Whereas if you can hold that in a little bit, we want the hips to rotate a little bit, but if you stop the knee rotating, you can't go round quite as far. So if I let the knee go, then I can get round and across. If I hold the knee in, let my hips go, then I can't get quite as round and over. So the more that hip opens up, the more likely to get around and across, and then you've got to throw it back over the top.
If you look side on as well, Sam, if you do that face onto the camera, if you look when Simon makes that move as well.
But that's the one where it doesn't rotate out. And then if I let my hip go and knee rolls.
See the way the weight goes onto the outside of the foot. It's almost like it's almost like a lateral move as well, away from it, isn't it? Yeah. And I think it's basically then it's likely to get stuck in around you, isn't it? I think so. If anything, you'd want to try to prevent that. You'd want to try and feel like you stay on top of the ball a little bit. More, wouldn't you?
You keep the weight just a little on the inside of the foot.
You're basically sort of effectively laterally moving off, aren't you? Getting too far onto the outside of your right foot, I think, is what I sort of observed.
And I hope I've interpreted that question correctly.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll come back if we haven't.
Yeah. Please do.
So, Leo, good evening. What are the major differences between the Ventus Black 7X and Diamana WB73X? So Ventus Black, WB73.
Ventus Black's a little heavier, about 3 or 4 grams heavier. The WB sits more like a 73 gram. Whiteboard's more like 77. Ventus Black's more like 77, 78. Interesting enough, the second generation, the Velocore Plus version of the Ventus is less tip heavy. So it's come back a little bit towards that whiteboard. I mean, they're both tip stiff, lower spinning, lower launching profiles in principle, both really stable. I would say the whiteboard feels a little crisper, almost feels a bit lower torque, a little tighter at impact. Ventus Black's really stable, but
all through the weight.
First generation felt more like the whiteboard. The second generation's, because the handle's less stiff, it's got a little more play in it.
Yeah,
So.
I've been a whiteboard player myself, the original whiteboard, actually put me into that one. And lighter weight was always suited me. The Ventus Black as a profile is a little bit heavier for my particular speed and the way I move it. So of the two, they both do what I want them to do in terms of the stiffness in the tip, but the actual, I prefer the weight of the whiteboard.
Yeah. Especially the current Diamanas, the red, blue, white, they sit at so a lot of shafts sit, if they're say 6 or 60 or 7 or 70, they sit between 60 and 70 or 70 and 80, but they tend to sit at the upper half. The Diamanas, i.e. 65 to 70, 75 to 80, the Diamanas sit at the lower half of the range. So if it says 63 on it, they genuinely are between 60 and 63. And 70 is between 71 and 73, 74. And the 53's at 50 to 53. So they sit at the lighter end, which actually is quite nice from a fitting point of view because it gives us a few stable shafts of that weight ratio rather than them always being at the upper end.
Yeah, both get play on tour, don't they? So. Eric Wallace, hey guys, happy Monday. Can we get a quick demo of the Elite Mini, both off turf and tee?
The Elite Mini we haven't got yet. It's due in. We've got them on order, and we've got some heads due in. Honestly, I'm not sure the exact date. It's those sort of fluids become a little bit fluid. They generally they may have been pushed back very slightly, but they're certainly imminent. But as soon as we've got them, we do have the GT 280 in those. So there's probably something like
in there.
that. So especially having said that, that's a nice head. Yeah.
Louis Goucher, evening guys. It's Masters Week at last. Just wondering what kind of tips you have to transition weight forwards in the swing. Often end up finishing and swinging, noticing weight is on the back foot.
So weight onto the front foot.
Yeah, transition getting forwards, yeah.
See, this is more Stuart's thing, so I've got to think about how would I... A lot of it is balance. It's actually not throwing yourself at it too hard. I think if people try too hard, try to hit too hard, what can happen is you come out of it. If you come out of it, your weight's going to fall back. Or it could just be a bit of restriction, could actually be not clearing through. If you slide, then you get blocked onto that front foot, and then you end up having to come back off of it. So actually just making sure that you're turning, almost sort of keep a little bit of weight on that front leg and make sure you're turning out the way, but it's staying on it. But that left hip has got to clear in order to do it.
I think what's quite interesting, that the question we had earlier on about moving onto that right foot and where if you're laterally moving off, if you do that and then you never actually get back onto your left-hand side just because you've moved off the ball so much, that could happen, I guess. Or if you reverse pivot and then the weight has to sort of go back the other way, that could happen as well. So if you go that way and then there's no way biomechanically you can keep on going left, so the body's gonna back up reverse C almost, isn't it? So either.
I mean, it's one of those.
It's hard to say.
I guess. Yeah, there are so many things that could cause it. That hence there's a multi layers of things that you can say. Well, it could be because of this. It could be because of that.
Get yourself a good coach, Larry, definitely. Get yourself on camera and get somebody who knows the answers to that, absolutely. David Brett, Simon, are you ready for Thursday?
I am. Yeah, I am. Yeah. So David is down at Royal St George's and has very kindly or very said he'll come out and have a watch of my match in the Halford.
Oh, okay.
So the weather's good, so at least you haven't got to kind of put all the waterproofs and things on. But yeah. Yeah, I feel ready, David.
Okay, there you go. Heard it here first. Hot take. Get the bets on.
It's foursome, so my partner might not be. So.
Nana, 620 MB, T100, T150, all 7-iron bent to the same loft. Would you see the same? Would you see spin differences? What about the longer irons, say 3-iron, or short irons like a 9-iron? So if all the models bent to the same loft, what spin differences are we going to see?
But ultimately, the blade is going to spin the most, all else being equal, because you've got the highest centre of gravity, which actually then gears the most spin onto it. So you should see the most spin with the blade, then the T100, and then the T150. However, the T100 may launch it a little bit higher than the blade. So in terms of spin relative to launch angle, the blade will produce the most spin, but you might see more actual flight height out of the T100, which would then make it play just a softer landing, potentially, or more so. Long irons, definitely going to see less spin out of a T150, but you're going to notice a miss hit more with the blade than anything else. So the ball speed drop off is where you then move into one of the other heads. But yeah, from a spin point of view, the blade should spin more.
Obviously, the more neutral CG allows for movability in terms of, flight alteration, up, down, fades, draws.
Yeah,
You're a blade player,
what,
right?
Yeah, so. You should see a little bit of a stronger launch profile, launch angle in the higher lofts, because again, the mass is sat a little higher, but it's still going to spin. So it's about having maximum playability in terms of controlling launch and launch angle, spin, shot shape, but least margin of error. So it's always a sliding scale of what's most important. I've played, as you alluded to, I've played blades for 45. I've played blades for 31 years. And it's the forgiveness versus results and what you're happy to give up a little bit on. How sensitive you are to it. The more blade like you've played for longer, the less sensitive to it you're going to be. But I do not want to play a 4-iron blade. No. Definitely not.
I mean, worth noting as well, different constructions there in terms of, obviously the 150 is a slightly different face construction or pocket cavity, isn't it? So not entirely, even if you get them bent to the same loft, they're not entirely the equal beasts, because they are made from different materials in there as well. So they are going to perform differently in terms of ball speed, which alters peak height, etc.
Yeah, I'd say ball speed on the 150 is going to should be noticeably higher than the blade, and the 100 should be a hair higher than the blade as well.
So even if you bend them the same, they're not going to perform the same for you. So, sorry, we've jumped ahead a little bit there. Let me go again. Oh, we sort of jumped. Couple more have come in.
Oh, is that the next one?
Well, no, it seems to have jumped, doesn't it? Because we've got another one there. Got one from Eric. Here we go. BC, BMC 112 TSR4 comboed with 63 gram blue board is the best driver setup I've ever had. Cheers, Simon. There's a compliment.
Yeah, I know TSR4 low spin, not the most forgiving beast in the world, but you know what? If it's right for you, it's a great head, and like any club. Ball speed wise will be good, and say if you're a high spinner of the ball, TSR4 was a great head.
Niels Akrusen, how do you see the difference between Sevenwood and Heavenwood and their respective use? They seem so similar yet different.
So I've never seen as big a difference out of the Heavenwood as Callaway have made out to be. It's still got a Sevenwood loft, which is a forward length. So yes, you can swing it slightly quicker, but it's then longer and therefore is harder to strike. And I personally don't see the gain of the Heavenwood, other than it's got a bit of loft and the head's a bit lighter. So in terms of where it sits, what is it going to pick up? 5 or 7 yards over a normal Sevenwood?
Potentially with a shaft length. It's an acquired taste, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because generally, if you're going into that sort of loft, you're looking for the shorter shaft length anyway. It's not really something where you're looking for that loft and you're looking to hit it a particular distance per se, in terms of longer. You're looking to try and hit it a particular distance and a particular height, I would. So it sits into the bag relative to where you are. Yeah, it's a funny one. It's a funny one.
It's one that's always sort of been there within their range. They've always kept it in there, but I've never seen enough gain to go, oh yeah, we'll go that versus a 5-wood or something like that, because the loft just makes it go higher and spin more. And so it's an interesting one. It's one they've stuck with, and clearly they've seen, for them there's enough merit to keep it in the line. But I don't see how it sits, where it sits relative to the other club heads in the line to make it that different.
Again, I guess
a lighter head weight.
To answer the question, we might see a few more yards out of it relative to the shaft length. Jasper L, would you recommend the client matches their driver shaft weight or a heavier shaft with a mini driver?
We've done a few of these now. What have you seen as a trend? Or have you seen a trend?
Well, sometimes it depends what the client's bringing to the table in terms of, am I going into mini driver because they struggle with the length of driver generally? What sort of purpose do they want to use it for? Is it something where it's a support club for to back up driver, or is it taking over from driver? Are we trying to make the mini driver as long as we possibly can? Generally, we would usually use a 3-wood length shaft, have it at sort of 43.5 inches.
It's between 43.5 and 43 3/4, the stock lengths on them,
And then depending on the client sort of transition and whether they suit something that's heavy or light, which has already been established in generally in the fit anyway, would depend on whether I'm going for something in the driver-like sort of weight. What's their characteristic? Why do they struggle with driver? Does it get trapped behind them because of the length and the weight? Or is it something where we're trying to control spin and launch profile? It is generally... Again, it's
a definitely maybe.
It's a definitely maybe. It depends what they're bringing.
Like you, I've seen both. I think there are the players who are using it as for the long hitters, where it's actually taking 3-wood out of the bag, because the 3-wood isn't something that they're using at par 5s very often. Certainly not for amateur golf, but it's as an option as a teeing off club to strategize back from driver. Then in those instances, it tends to be almost more of a 3-wood build, but with a driver head on the bottom. So yes, but I don't think the weight progression goes up as much as you'd normally go to for a 3-wood. I think you use weight more if you're playing it off the ground. You use the weight to get down to the ball and almost to squeeze it, whereas when you're teeing off, a few grams less because you're sweeping it and picking it off.
That's what I mean. If you've got a skilled player who wants to hit it off both surfaces, then it opens it up really. I mean, I know the pros are playing, excuse me, slightly heavier options, but the pros generally are in a different world to most amateurs that we see come through the bay in terms of the speed and everything that they bring to the table. But definitely maybe. I've fitted some with same weight shaft, 65 grams. I've put some into sort of getting up towards 3-wood weights that amateurs might use. Let's say a standard player at 100 miles an hour, maybe 72, 73 grams. So bit of both, I would say. Nick K, will TaylorMade release a mini driver this year? Any info on the tech name, release date, or when you'd be able to talk about it?
Well, the last one is a critical thing. Are they releasing one? Yes. Will we be getting some in? Yes. Exact date, probably I'm not even sure I can say yet, but I think it's beginning in May. I believe early May is, I'd have to double check things, but can we talk about it yet? No. But are they releasing one? Yes.
So
it will be a similar kind of hero product to last year. It's not going to be an inline product.
Yeah. So obviously more companies bringing mini drivers to market. Obviously TaylorMade have already done it. Callaway, Titleist, but they all seem to be delayed on the. Do you think that's because they were waiting to see how well they were going to be accepted by the market, and maybe that's pushed back release dates to a certain extent?
No, I think what they do with it. Certainly the current ones go on last year. TaylorMade, Callaway. Those products have been in design. I mean, as you know, worked with Wilson, how long these products are in design for. They've known for years they're launching them. But what they want to do is they want to get the mainstay of the product delivery out. So if they're making loads of changes, get that done January, February, and then generally kind of April, May. There's then these are limited run products. Even Titleist with the GT280, it's a lower production level than they would normally do. So, like TaylorMade, certainly there's a certain batch. They know they're going to sell them, then they're going to sell pretty quickly. They put them in the market, and then they're gone. And Callaway to a lesser extent, but it's a similar kind of principle. So I think that's why they do them. Just you get the hit of February, March, April as sort of when there's a big uplift. We see it in here in purchasing, and then there's that hero product that comes in that fills out the summer and gives them another hit. So I think there's a bit of a staggering from a delivery point of view.
Do you think now with the acceptance on tour they're going to become more in line? Do you think we're just going to see mini drivers just standard release?
It's an interesting one. The upside to the brands of doing the hero product thing is they know how many they're going to make. They know they're going to sell them out. It's a known quantity, whereas if they put them in line, if it's less successful than they want it to be, than they hope, then they're left with a load of stock. And the current way of doing it means the limited nature means they are going to sell. So I honestly don't know. I think it's not as broad a product usage as a fairway wood driver would be. It does sit, because it sits in that middle ground. It's either for the really long hitter who doesn't use a fairway wood as a fairway wood, or 3-wood as a fairway wood.
Yeah.
And like we'll see, probably on Augusta, they'll put a lofted wood in and they'll put the mini driver in just because it's more forgiving off the tee. But they're different animals to the rest of us.
Yeah.
Or it's someone who's really not great with the driver and you're kind of firefighting that. So will it become inline? I'm really not sure. I think the brands probably quite like how they're doing it at the moment. So
supply and demand.
I'd probably be 70% saying I don't think so. Yeah.
It's an interesting concept, yeah. I know Eddie Pepperell plays one as his full driver, doesn't he? He's kind of dropped driver altogether now, Eddie. So we have got Louis Gauchi's going for Battier and Russell Henley as his picks for this week.
Batier's a good call, and Henley's a big tournament
Lefty
player.
fades
That's
it. Henley great with a putter.
Yeah.
Like it. We'll bear those in mind.
Yeah.
Eric Wallace, shaft question. Can you compare similarities between the Diamana BB versus the 1K Blue versus the Ventus Blue? Thanks. So all the blues. Right, BB versus 1K Blue versus Ventus Blue. Didn't specify weights or...
I'll do them in a driver in the 60.
I'm going to grab those for you. I'll give the next one a crack. Hi guys, looking for a shaft for my 5-wood similar to a Fujikura Pro 72 stiff. I have a Callaway Heavenwood. Anything similar you can think of? Well, Fuji Pro, if it's the one I'm thinking of, which was one of the stock options, doesn't play quite as stiff as the standard Fuji Pro, the aftermarket version. Would have had the white decal on it with the green. If I'm thinking about the right one, Fuji Pro would have been a stock option from Callaway. It's going into a Heavenwood.
Fuji, they did with the green on that was a hazardous.
Yeah.
That was there was the even flow that they did with one that was kind of grey with a green and white flash on it.
Yeah. They did there was a white decal Fuji Pro though as well, right?
How long back are we going?
Well, it doesn't specify age of it, but he's asking for similarity, so it must have come to the end of its life, unfortunately, I'm presuming. So, something maybe like in the Tour AD range in terms of from a
similarities to the Fuji Pro series. I would say
something in the
Pro. The Pro was a really, I would call it inoffensive shaft. That's why it was so successful.
It's always done really well in the heat, hasn't it? So
I would say, the closest ones out there at the moment, without going kind of, if we're keeping it in a similar kind of range, price point was, the C6 Mitsubishi. That's definitely in a similar
I was going to say that 72 grams.
Yeah.
Lovely.
That's a really nice shaft.
Responsive, goes great in fairway woods, depending on what you're looking for it to sort of do. And if you've got a bit more budget, maybe one of the Tour ADs as well, depending on where you wanted to sort of take things. So I'm thinking about
I think the closest one to the Fuji Pro at the higher level would be the, it's a slightly tighter feel, but I think the Diamana is the blue board in terms of the way it swings.
Yeah. VRTX probably a little bit more.
It's a little higher balance, isn't it?
Balance, so
it was Tensei Blue, Diamana Blue, Ventus Blue.
Correct.
Right.
Yep, the 1K. So we're going to have a hit of those for you, see how that goes. Paul Andrews, I might be in Dreamland, but I see Tommy Fleetwood winning the Masters this year. Him or Min Woo? Well, both of those would be great champions.
I'd love both of them to win. Fleetwood, I see winning when it's really tough conditions. When his iron play and his ball striking come to the fore. A year like this year, I just don't see him doing it. I don't see him getting across the line.
He shot 81. He shot 81 yesterday to finish off in.
It's really sad to say because I think he's a great player. But I can't believe he hasn't won out in the States yet.
Yeah, he's had a couple of opportunities now.
Just never got across the line. I don't see him doing it unless it's challenging conditions in a US Masters, sadly.
Minwoo's got the
great
power.
Player.
Yeah, got the power, got the short game. Is he ready? He's obviously still a young guy.
He still sprays one every now and then, but I'd love to see him win. I think he's great fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. He's one of the characters in golf right now, isn't he? So, right, you're going to step in and hit some.
Can't grow much of a tash, though, can he?
No, well, either can I. So.
I think Minwoo, one of the other reasons why he's long hitter, but he's got an amazing short game.
Yeah.
Some of the wedge shots he can hit unbelievable. So that actually, he's a pretty good shout.
I think if he popped up and
There's a bit
won
of an
one
outlier.
over the next 5 to 10 years, it wouldn't be a surprise. He's right up there, isn't he? So Sam's got the 1K blue here, by the way.
So I'm going to start, it's just a comparison on, isn't it? Yeah, so 1K blue is the lightest of the three. So the 1Ks in the 50, 60, 70 sit pretty much bang on 50, 60 and 70, which sounds really odd to say, but that's quite rare. Difference between Diamana and Tensei with Mitsubishi. Diamana is always about smooth feel. Tensei is trying new materials. So, Tensei is, they're both very similar balance, very neutrally weighted, very mid-balance. But I would say Tensei,
good swing.
you can definitely feel that midsection load. It's got a little bit back through the shaft. You know, very much people call it kind of mid-launch. It's stable without, I think when I go to the Diamana, I'll describe it more, but I think the Diamana has a slightly crisper feel at impact, I would say. Tensei is, and they're really similar shafts. They're both blue board profile, you know, very kind of smooth, even bend through the shaft. I'm going to quit on while I'm ahead on that
absolutely.
swing.
Good hit, sir.
But it's Tensei, you're going to definitely feel a little bit of loading and a bit of responsiveness through. Going to Diamana. I was actually really pleasantly surprised at how tight and crisp these shafts feel at impact. So in the blue board, obviously expect the white board to feel quite firm, quite tight at impact. But the blue, I thought, also felt really quite very low torque feel to it.
Yeah. Obviously based on the original profiles from going back some time now, not quite
20 years.
20 years, but nearly, right?
Yeah, it had their 20-year anniversary last year.
Yeah, Tiger obviously made the shaft most famous, I would say.
Yeah. So similar in terms, there's a bit of give through the midsection. But I've dragged that one over, but it's a bit of a tighter feel through the ball. So by that, what I mean is if you're someone who's got a little bit more aggression to the swing and doesn't want to feel, you know, the irony if I've just got over the top of that one, feel it go left, this one will feel right out the neck, but it kind of hangs onto the head more. It feels like the clubhead stays with the shot just a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Almost like the shaft's working harder to cling onto the clubhead at impact.
Same technology in the tip section. I mean, they're very closely matched, those two, aren't they? From the same company, you'd... you know, yeah.
They're incredibly similar shafts, bar marginal material differences. I think when you go into the white profile, there's more of a difference. I think the blues, for me, is a very marginal call between them.
Yeah.
But you say, especially on the same bend profile and the same platform of shaft, just slight change in materials.
Obviously, within the Fujikura range, you've got the Speeder NX, but I would say the Ventus and the Speeder are different profiles. They are different beasts, whereas they are pretty close together. I can see where you could almost get those a bit confused, you know. Yeah. And hence the question maybe is what's the difference between them? So
they swing very, very, very slightly different, but actually, you know, many similarities. As you say, you could switch between them quite easily without really noticing very much. Ventus Blue's a little heavier. We're at 66, 67 grams on this one. I would say versus first generation, it's a slightly smoother feel. But
slightly different balance as well.
Yeah, I thought all of the new range of the Velocore Pluses aren't quite as tip weighted. It's kind of slightly more moderated.
Yeah.
Kind of a little more down the bottom of the shaft than the Mitsubishis. There's a T's just died. There's a little bit more to hit against at the bottom end. Yeah. Which for me suits me a little bit better. You know, so I can use the mass in this a little bit more. So there's definitely a bit more in the lower half of that to hit against. Whereas the two Mitsubishis are much more evenly weighted, but a slightly more solid, stout feel out of the Ventus.
Yeah, I think if you're in for a fit, and that's the sort of section in terms of your delivery that the fitter might pick a few of those to have a hit of and see which foot you get on with best, I would say. Right, so we've got Doug. Hi guys, looking for a shaft for my sorry, done that one. Phil Andrews, I might, no, done that one too. Sorry, it's just went up. There we go. Kevin Phillips accidentally put a Titleist driver adapter on a fairway shaft. If I swap the fairway adapter, do I lose anything, or is the tip insertion the same depth?
The sleeve depth is different, and
playing length might be slightly different.
the playing length would change.
Depends what other adapter you're going to put on it to a certain extent, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just thinking in terms of if he's gone. Yeah, so on the bit that's going to change is it won't go. If you've got a driver adapter on instead of a fairway adapter, then the length of the insertion it pokes through more. Therefore, it won't actually screw. You won't be able to get it on. I'm going to get two shafts to show you what I mean.
It depends if you're going. What other adapter you're going on to, really, there, to be honest with Kevin. But I think Sam's going to grab a shaft here with a Titleist Sure Fit sleeve on there for you and demonstrate what he means.
So these are the two adapters. So they're actually, the screws will fit in, but because of the different lengths here, this is the driver one, that's the fairway one, is that there'll be that much of a difference. So basically that won't fit into the fairway head. A bit like if you try to put that into the driver, the screw won't reach it because you've got that different depth between the frame of the adapter and the tip of the screw.
So probably not.
Yeah, used to be able to do it years back. I think it was in the 910s, 915s that they were interchangeable. And then they changed them. Yeah.
The Yorkshire Blade. Hi Simon, great show. I have the Miz S3 free iron to pitch and wedge. If I go 2 degrees stronger, will it ruin the turf interaction that I love due to the sole shaping?
I wouldn't say it would. Obviously, you go 2 degrees stronger, you're de-lofting 2 degrees, you're taking 2 degrees of bounce off as well. So it is going to mean that on softer turf, it is going to want to get into the turf just a little bit more. Will it ruin it? Not necessarily. But I think particularly in the shorter irons, mid to long irons, you're barely going to notice any difference. I think from maybe 8, 9 and pitch, certainly you may well find it just wants to get into the turf a little bit more.
Haven't got much camber on them anyway, have they? So
yeah, they've got a bit of a leading edge bevel, but
depends on the delivery, I guess.
Out there at the moment, there's been no rain for about a month,
Yeah.
So absolutely fine at the moment. The moment it softens up again, they might want to get in.
You get around St Andrews in July, if they see any sun that is up in Scotland.
But yeah, I think won't ruin them. But if you tend to get a little bit on the steeper side, then you will notice it. Yeah.
We go, Alistair Campbell. Hi both. How do you choose what ball you play, long versus short game orientated, and how reliable are services like Ballnamic?
Ballnamic.
That's a new one on me, that one, sorry.
Yeah,
Ballnamic.
I think it's one of those ones where, so during a fitted, look at where someone's ball flight is with their irons in terms of natural launch and spin profile. So if we're going through a full bag, and look at what can we do from a head point of view, what can we do from a shaft point of view, get everything as clean strike as possible, and there's often a little bit of a compromise somewhere in the bag. To do a proper ball fitting, you're looking at 2.5 hours to do a proper ball fitting. So we've got to approximate and go, right, what ball are you playing? What sort of feel of ball do you like? Some players like a firmer ball, some like a softer ball. And then could we do with helping retain a bit more spin on the irons or taking it down a little bit? And then when we go to driver, what do we see there? Hopefully there's a trend. If there's a trend that you can easily say, right, you need a lower spin ball or a higher spin ball. Then, like short game side of things, when you're getting into the realms of the pros, those guys and girls will really see a difference in how they launch and spin control. And even at my level, I'm +2. I could switch around between balls, and because of the variations in the conditions we're playing, the turf, the softness, how much difference would I see chipping and putting? You dial into the feel there pretty quickly, I think. So if you're inefficient flight-wise with a long game, then prioritise that. And if you can then match the feel, a softer feel or a firmer feel, then that's another layer that you could almost certainly find between all the balls out there now.
I think there's a lot of talk about that on tour, but the tour guys are so tuned into their equipment that it is a major change for them when they change anything in the bag. But the ball, which is that one staple that is played for every shot, is huge, right?
Yeah.
So when those guys make a change, it probably does feel like they're, you know, using a new pair of hands almost, because it's just so different for those guys when they're changing around the greens, and they're so used to it performing and seeing a particular flight that it's different for the amateur golfer. If you play off 20 and you're not particularly consistent, then going from one model to another, is it going to make a quantum leap of difference? Probably not as much as maybe getting the right shaft or right head into a club is going to. In all honesty, I would always dial the clubs in first, and then the ball can kind of
if you can augment the performance with the ball, I mean, case in point. I mean, the other bit of it is where you are. If you're in the US, the ball reacts really differently off the turfs you've got than here. I was out at Titleist a couple of weeks ago and doing a bit of wedge testing. The turf and the greens there. I mean, I could play shots that I wouldn't even dream about trying here. You can play a low one that fizzes and stops. Here, you try and do that, it just doesn't grip. You know, the grasses make such a difference to the shots. So we watched the tour guys and see them fizz in a 20-yarder, goes 1, 2, stop. Try doing that in the UK this time of year. It's just not going to happen. So I think, I would agree. I think make sure you're optimizing your consistency of flight and spin on the long game, and then find one that feels nice, that matches that spin performance for the short game. I think I'd do it that way around.
Yeah, I think we did do a video on YouTube, didn't we, which we spoke about actually compression and at particular clubhead speeds. That becomes important with driver. So I think that's definitely worth a watch and to see. Because if you're a high clubhead speed player with driver, you can over compress a ball, so to speak, in terms of you're not going to get the most out of it ball speed wise, and the consistency becomes a little bit varied in terms of the spin profiles. What you found when we did that video?
And something I had a brief chat with them about they were doing a bit of ball testing when we were out there at 180 mile/hour ball speed, and was talking to them about what did they see. They didn't overly answer it when I was there, but it's consistency of that spin, and the flight, and therefore the distance. So much worse to overload a ball and over compress it, because it takes longer to retain to get back to its shape, and you lose stability in flight, than to under compress it. Certainly.
I think budget allowing, if you can play a multi-construction ball, obviously if you're losing a few per round, that gets expensive. But if you can play a multi-construction ball, you're going to get performance from tee to green effectively. If you're going into something cheaper, then you're probably going to see a sacrifice somewhere in the golf hole, whether it be short game or long game, right? So hope that answered that. Jason Owen, I'm 59 years old, 10 handicap. I am starting to move from 5, 6 iron into 7 and 9 wood. I have a more consistent strike and ball flight. Is custom fitting just as important for higher lofted woods compared to irons?
Yeah, you still want to make sure you get your gapping right. You want to make sure that you're not, part of it is making sure you're not playing too many clubs. And people might say, "Oh, well, why would you say that? Surely you want to sell people as many clubs as possible." But actually, there is just no point having 2 or 3 clubs that do 1.5 clubs difference. So is it important? Yes, absolutely, because you're still optimizing launch and spin. Like irons, not playing something horribly unforgiving. Getting the balance of that launch angle and flight, and therefore carry distance, stopping power and control. Is it a lofted wood? Is it a hybrid? All of those aspects, absolutely worth doing for sure.
I had a situation this morning, actually. The gent who came in and wanted to drop a bit of weight in his iron shafts. We were going into graphite. We did that. Hadn't previously used 5 iron and 6 iron, but when we actually swapped into the graphite options, being a little bit shorter, he found more consistency with the 6 iron as he did with his 6 hybrid.
Right.
So he moved into a 6 iron, because at the 70-gram graphite we went into, he could actually, at the length, he could actually find more consistent in terms of the strike. Dispersion was better. Distance was just as good as the 6 hybrid, which was longer and a little bit more varied. So actually he brought a 6 iron back into his bag, and then we dropped. He had 4 clubs there, 2 hybrids, 2 fairway woods, and we swapped that in for 1 hybrid, 1 fairway wood. Because he's just saying, I'm a bit confused at the top end of the bag, Nick. I don't know what I hit, what distance, and what I'm picking out in any situation. So sometimes simplifying the bag can be the best thing for the golfer as well.
I was going to say, you don't want to be standing over a shot going, should I hit that one or that one? At least by doing, exactly what job they're going to do for you. What distance a solid hit's going to give you. What they're going to do when they land as well. And then it's a case of, right, it's that club, rather than what do I hit, and then you don't commit to either of them.
Duncan Buck, Simon, as you know, I'm a bit of an injured and wondering, hypothetically, what the lightest swing weight might do to a very average swing speed. So we're talking about dropping swing weight, really. Where would you go? How light would you go?
Well, it's interesting, actually. So Duncan, Duncan's someone, as you may suggest, that I know quite well, and is a repeat offender, Duncan. Yeah, Duncan's body's been quite, affected by some of the things that he does with motorbikes and cars and things over the years. But yeah, so actually for Duncan, we've always needed to keep some head weight, some swing weight. So, and by swing it is actually not going overly heavy in the shaft, but keeping some weight in the bottom end to get the club dropping into the back of the ball. So you can hurt yourself from a strike point of view by going lighter on swing weight. It may well be that the way to go is losing a few grams in the shaft, but keep some weight in the head. Just different patterns will require different things. Some players it'll work to lose a bit of head weight so they can kind of fetch the club through. Others, like for me, if I go too light, I lose the club on the way down. I need something to take me down to the ball. So I can play lighter with some head weight, but I can't play kind of moderate weight without head weight. And others, it's vice versa. So it is one of those sort of definitely maybe things, but for you, Duncan, I know that a bit of head weight is definitely a good thing normally.
Matt Swan, is GT1 Fairway with heavyweight forwards a GT 2.5 similar to GT4 weight swap? So GT1, but with the heavier weight forwards, CG forwards, effectively.
I would say so. I'd say that's not a bad. I'd say not a bad way to look at it. I think weight forward, it's spin. So the one thing with GT1 is that the 3-wood is. Let's just say it's not necessarily doesn't necessarily measure what it says on it. It's more towards a 3.5 wood loft. So they've upped the loft. So putting the weight forward, you're still going to get plenty of launch out of it. And if that extra loft hurts you, it might still spin too much. But putting the weight forward definitely helps to keep that spin down, but you're definitely going to get more launch out of that than the other head.
Loft would override the CG.
Yeah.
If it's got more measured loft on it, it's going to override whether you bring the weight forward or not anyway. It's still going to override it, right?
Yeah, that's what I saw my fitting this afternoon. I thought, well, actually, we're looking to get a bit more launch to keep spin down, so I did exactly that. Put weight forward, but it still spun loads. We actually ended up in the elite fairway wood in a 3-wood because it was a shallower head, helped him get into the bottom of the ball, but the tungsten weight at the front made it kind of launch from forwards. It was a really nice, strong flight out of it. So, yeah, I mean, the weight forward helps, but the extra loft, if it doesn't suit you, will still spin it a little bit too much. But a GT 2.5 isn't the worst way to look at it, I would say.
Great head. I mean, that piece of cake to launch, isn't it? That thing?
Yeah, it's been a brilliant addition.
Oh, yeah. Slalom Dude 68, Ping I230 irons are being discounted in the US. Any words on the I240 release this summer? Can you even discuss?
I mean, yeah, there'll be a Ping will launch sort of. Would it be next year or was it the latter part of this year? I'm trying to remember when their cycle shifted a little bit. But yeah, potentially if they're discounting already in the US, then it is coming to the end of its product cycle. Absolutely, there's going to be. It's probably, if I'm right, it's probably a Septemberish kind of time. We've not seen what it's going to be. We've not been told what it's going to be called. So
don't know.
Yeah, but it's a 2-year cycle, and it's coming to the back end of that.
And the I series is always strong, isn't it? So it'll
just hope they don't mess it up. It's been such a good head.
I'm sure they will.
But I doubt they will.
Yeah.
It'll be a progression on the 230. That's what I think Ping have always been really good at.
Yeah.
They've taken stuff that works and just and updated it rather than wholesale change.
Yeah. No silly sort of promises. It's just X amount better than the previous model for this reason. That's why, as a brand, they're very solid, right? James Young, evening, gents. Bit of advice heading into an iron fit tomorrow. What should a low spin player be focusing on to maximise forgiveness, as these hollow body irons tend to be forgiving, but spin drops off? True.
It's an interesting one. Yeah, if you're a low spin player, it's hard out there to get forgiveness and some flight. And that's something that I think all the brands are starting to realise because they're all doing the HL irons now.
Yeah, or the retro loft in the G series, which has been a nice addition to do as well. Again, shaft can play a bit of a part in potentially how much loft you deliver and therefore helping a little bit with spin. So I'm sure the fitter will cover shaft with you. And
I think it depends how depends on what your strike pattern is and how much you need forgiveness in the head. It might be that actually getting the shaft right means your strike improves, and then actually something like the I-230, the T100, you know, potentially the JPX 925 forged if the loft's brought back up a little bit. But you might not need as forgiving a head as you think you do, but the extra flight and spin that those heads give you, it's sort of weighing up the, you know, what do you lose by having potentially a marginally less forgiving head versus what you gain on the flight. It's always that balance between strike margin of error and launch and spin.
Yeah. So. Within reason, how much would you subtract or add loft onto a golf club before it starts playing with the look of it and getting a bit funky, would you say?
I think 1 degree is absolutely fine. 2, you're going to start to, if you're taking loft off, you're going to start to see a difference. Most players don't really notice it if you're adding loft because the leading edge comes more in line with the shaft. Other than you'll end up adding bounce. So depending on the turf you play off or your delivery, that would be a consideration.
Yeah, the fitter should take all that into consideration, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good question, though.
Now we've got 9-10 minutes or so.
Okay.
So we'll see how.
So let me just get off that there. So we've got Craig. Hey guys, got the GT Freewood, but find it slightly big. Is it just me? Love the drive and the 5-wood. Westy had a 7-wood. The GT 7-wood is just too spinny for me. So within
I mean, the 3-wood relative to the 5-wood is slightly bigger, but it's not a big head. And there aren't going to be many that are going to be smaller.
Maybe a couple of the Cobras. I mean, they're pretty.
Possibly unless. Yeah.
Different spin profile, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean it's interesting how Callaway and the Triple Diamond have got a 7-wood now this year. I think that's just where we're seeing so many more of the higher speed players going into more loft. But yeah, the GT2 will spin it up a little bit more. So yeah, it's a difficult one, that. Yeah. Especially if you want to see a more compact head than that, there won't be many.
No, it's just the trend that everything's getting a bit bigger, a bit easier to hit, isn't it? I mean, the GT1, for example.
Yeah, much bigger head.
Andrew Hommant. Hi, chaps. Looking forward to my woods arriving, expertly fitted by myself. Thanks, Andrew. Sent Andrew away to do some swing improvements, went away, did a great job, came back, had a great wood fitting. So with the QI35 3HL being adjustable, would it ever be something I need to consider playing with or leave it be? I think it really depends on if your swing improvements, like with yourself, Andrew, continue and therefore you desire a different performance from the Fairway wood. But, you know, as we've said before, always pick up the phone, consult us. We can have a conversation about it. If you need to come back in, we can obviously see you and then we can get the numbers and we'll always be driven by the data ultimately. But yeah, absolutely. That's the beauty of most of the modern day equipment now is you're not just buying one golf club, you're buying effectively, you know, multiple golf clubs because they can be adjusted, face angle, loft. There's so much going on with them now, isn't there? So
those days where you'd be between, is it the 3-wood or the 5-wood or is it the 9 degree or the 10.5 degree driver? And if you're on the borderline, you'd be like, oh God, do we err lower or higher? And you just kind of hope. Yeah. Whereas now the beauty, as you said, you can make them exactly where you want to. So you've got, with that head, you've got the ability to take off almost 2 degrees of loft on it. Yeah. So, or add almost 2 degrees of loft. So you've got a really wide window that you can work. Yes, it changes the face angle a little bit, but yeah, the versatility is great now. So, yeah.
Kevin Phillips, appreciate the visual. I was going to put a Titleist Fairway on. I found Fairway adds 0.75, driver adds 1.25. Just wondering if the shaft tip still goes in the same depth in both sleeves.
Does the shaft go same? The answer is yes. So the kind of the line at the bottom of the sleeve there, higher or lower, James? Going like that. That line there at the base of the sleeve before the ferrule is where the shaft goes in. So the shaft goes in the same depth, but then depending on which head it's going into, the head slots on differently. So yeah, the shaft will go in the same depth, but if you got it in the wrong one, it won't go in the head.
I think we've covered all the questions there.
That's all. Oh, very good.
There we go.
Very good. Right.
First time for everything.
So, right, anything that you've seen this year, equipment-wise, that we've been able to, that either something both positive or negative, anything that you're seeing from the equipment this year that you haven't seen in previous years? I know it's been, like last year was a really good year, and I think we've had two series of really good variety of equipment. But is there anything that you're seeing in particular?
I just think the introduction of the mini drivers has been really interesting, and potentially where they fit into somebody's bag. Definitely more people coming in and asking about mini drivers now, having a bit more option to be able to fit them as well, because we've got the heads in. You know, having the 280 head now in the Titleist. I know Jack, one of the fitters here, fitted with that this afternoon and said it was really impressive. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes over the next couple of months. And with more and more of those in play in the tour bags, I expect there's going to be more and more people piquing their interest. You know, but yeah, they've been really interesting. Some of the head weights in the irons have gotten a bit heavy this year, so I think you've got to be careful. But I think that's because the market is dropping shaft weight because they're going longer. They're still in search of distance that way, so I think you've got to be a little bit careful. More reason to be getting fitted,
more
I think.
tungsten things in, aren't they? I think it's just
Seems
where
to be.
they're sort of trying to make the heads as forgiving as possible and add a bit of tech. But actually, if you're adding in high density material, you've got to take it out somewhere. And then definitely, as you say, there are a couple of the crept. I'd say 790 this year is 3 or 4 grams heavier
Strixon.
than it was previous model. The Strixons are a couple of grams heavier.
I mean, you can make them work, but they're definitely hitting slightly heavier swing weights. So if you've got somebody where we're building over-length golf clubs for them, longer than standard, longer than the manufacturer's standard, then swing weights can get up. So you've got to be a bit careful with that, certainly in terms of how they swing in time for the player. So that's something that I've just noticed. I mean, everybody's got such good gear out again this year.
It's been a real joy. I think, I mean, to echo what you were saying about the quality of the product out there now, last year was good. This year's probably just better. But the caveat is the head weights on the irons. I'm certainly seeing golfers much more open to just playing what works. But I think things like the Lofted woods going forward, Sevenwood, doing so many fewer 3 woods, and starting to do many more kind of 9 woods. I think hybrids are kind of falling into a bit of a not divisive in terms of the product, but I'm seeing more players going into lofted fairways and then into irons, and not necessarily playing a hybrid. I think the purpose of the hybrid, a lot of them are low spin this year. There are a couple of the Strixon's moderate spin, the TaylorMade Max is moderate spin, GT1 launches it up, but there are a lot of low spin bombers out there. And so then for me, the hybrid falls into the, you're just trying to send it up a fairway as far as possible in place of a 4 or 5 iron. Versus actually then the lofted woods to play into greens.
Do you feel like there's been a few sort of stigmas, so to speak, in terms of high lofted fairway woods, graphite shaft? There seems to be a few boundaries being broken down about what players are more welcome to in terms of, oh, you know, okay, let's give a graphite a go, let's give a higher lofted fairway wood a go, whereas it always used to be a bit like, well, don't want to touch that because it's seen to be a particular type of club for a particular type of golfer, you know?
100%. I think the fact that you're seeing tour players playing 9 woods, you know, Fitzpatrick, Fleetwood, Dustin Johnson played 9 wood at the LA US Open. I think the fact that those players are playing what they are, where there are other players going up to 5 iron as their longest iron in the bag. I think, you know, if the best players in the world are doing that, you know, golfers are more data-driven than ever. I think the knowledge of the consumer coming in is so far removed from where it was 5-10 years back.
100%.
You know, I used to get people hitting a driver, hitting it 240 and going, that's lying, I hit it further. Now they hit it 240, 250, and people will go, that's lying, I don't hit it that far. Which makes a huge difference to us fitting, because we can go, no, actually you do. Rather than trying to explain that you don't hit it as far as you think you do. Just the data, the knowledge of the game.
Or seeing the data, and they've actually been on a range which provides data, and they go, they're my numbers. So it's great because they can confirm that what they're seeing on the day is what they see normally, and then you can move forward with that, you know, rather than having this sort of debate on
is it
whether they've bent physics or not, right?
But I think that to me, from the job that we do, the consumer's knowledge of their games and their numbers has made it so much more pleasurable and easier, because golfers know their data now. Yeah.
We've got a few more questions. Are we going to handle them?
Let's fire them through quickly.
Craig, you are so right about the grass in the US is different, but they all adopting LA Golf tried the new driver, which looks great, but would love to see the stats. Will you guys do a review?
If we can get one from LA to test in the near future, then yes. Obviously, we've got some of their shafts in. Actually, just tested the new Gold series, which is a nice shaft. And we'll be adding some extra weights to our matrix now with that. But yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see how it performs. I'm certain. I know if they can get one or get some over here that we've chatted to them and they'd be interested for us to test it. So yeah.
I know James just answered this one about Workshop Wednesdays coming back.
Oh.
I think it potentially is the answer to that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Nuno wants
definitely going to be doing more. The plan is to do more footage in the workshop.
Yeah, great.
For sure.
Darren Critcher, best irons for mid-handicap of 30 in handicap, ball speed low 90s for 7-iron. Any reason why you've got hollow body over CB?
So
why you'd go hollow body over
hollow
CB?
body, you're going to get more tech. They'll mirage a face and you'll get more ball speed and you'll get the CG lower. A CB head, it's more blade-like, it's less forgiving. So it just depends what launch spin and effectively help off centre you want. Did you say 90 mile an hour?
Yeah, low 90s ball speed with 7-iron.
Ball speed. So well, actually, probably the Mizuno 925 HL, the JPX. That for moderate speed, where most of the time you're looking to get flight and carry distance.
Good head.
That's a standout head this year.
Yeah.
I think they'll be caught up soon, but that to me is the best head out there for moderate speed and not necessarily higher ball players. That's been a great head.
The Mizuno lineup again is good this year. The irons,
Yeah.
I have to say, they've impressed me. New JPX forged.
Yeah, that's a nice head.
Nice
Yeah,
head.
that's a nice head.
Haven't done anything with the S3 as of yet.
And it's essentially a blade, isn't
yeah,
it? So it's very
yeah.
limited.
Yeah, but
market
the rest
for
of the
that,
JPX
but yeah.
range is good again.
Lovely
isn't
feeling
it?
head, the S3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good. I think we've covered all the questions again.
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for the invite again.
I hope you've all enjoyed. I hope we've not been too bright for you this evening. We thought we'd go kind of Augusta this week, so why not?
Yeah.
But yeah, enjoy the first major of the season. I think this is shaping to be an absolute rip snorter of a major. And hopefully all the big guns will come out firing.
Yeah.
And it's a birdie fest and we can sit back on Sunday night and think what a classic that was.
Fingers crossed for Rory. We'd love to see him do the Grand Slam, have to
He
say.
won with his B game, which he's not done before, so who knows?
Yeah.
But thank you for joining us. As ever, thanks for all the questions. If you're new to the channel, like, subscribe, check out all the other videos. You might see this young man in them, as well as this old stager. But really appreciate you coming in.
Pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Always great to chin wag with another fitter. And we'll look forward to seeing you next Monday, where we'll be chatting about the winner of the Masters and whether my team could win a first round at the Herefordshire, which is rare. But, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.